it's Chris from WeLet. Today I'm just going to go through recent things that have been happening in the market as regards interest rates. So, well, obviously we had the mini budget, which didn't entirely go down well with the city as in markets in general. It's worth noting that the 2-year fixed rate was around about 4.74%. Before the mini budget, and it went up to 6% since, well, 6% plus, and that's made quite a difference to the actual costs you're going to be paying each month. So essentially on a £150,000 mortgage, you've gone from £854 a month to £966 or more. And that's roughly about £112 a month. And if, as some are forecasting next year, that goes as high as 8%, that'll be £1158 or over £300 more per month. Currently, the SVR, or the standard variable rate's around 4.25%. So I guess what people are wondering is, what should I do? Now you can get those fixed. You can, if you can afford it at those levels at over 6%, you can get the fixes. But you are going to take a bit of a hit to your profit margin as a landlord. What you could do, of course, if you come into the end, is stick with the SVR, the standard variable rate, and see if you can wait it out a little bit. Some people are arguing that there's a limit to how far the Bank of England can take interest rates up, because obviously it affects government debt and makes it harder to service. So at the moment, inflation, as we know, is very high. Interest rates is kind of a blunt tool the Bank of England's using. And what can you do? Well, one thing that springs to mind obviously is a lot of people just take the comparison sites, etc., for themselves, see what rates they can get, what the best rates are. But those rates are changing fairly frequently at the moment, almost on a daily basis. So the best person to see is a broker, and this is a whole of market mortgage broker. You might expect to pay £200 to £400 for their services, but it's more than worth it. Now look, if you're remortgaging, to give them sort of in and around 6 months notice, so they can work on it for you and see what they can get, the best deal they can get. Now it's worth noting that 2-year fixes currently are more expensive than 5 or 10-year fixes. So the question is, have the markets factored in that inflation is not going to be persistent or for a long time? Certainly not over the sort of 2-year period. I think the general consensus is probably 12 to 18 months. Now you only have to look at some things inflation wise. For instance, shipping containers, the cost of shipping containers has gone down some 70% from their peak. So there can be a lag in inflation figures from what the Bank of England's going on to what the actual inflation number is. So finding yourself fixing at a high rate for beyond 2 years, 5 years, etc., might not make the greatest of sense. So what am I doing? I was lucky to get a 2-year fix on my buy-to-let at 4.74. And that was on a remortgage. That's my most recent one I'm doing. But even that's going to cost me obviously quite a bit more than I was on originally, something like in the region of £200, because I had such a good deal before per month. Now, what can you do? If you're a standard buy-to-let, vanilla buy-to-let landlord with single lets, it is obviously going to get increasingly difficult for you. Yeah, you might have a family and not be paying for the bills yourself, energy-wise, so you got that sorted, but the mortgage levels going up are really going to take a hit to your profits. So obviously, what can you do? You can look at whether you have properties single let now that's suitable for HMO purposes. Those houses in multiple occupancy, so you could get other people in, paying by the room, increase your margin there and cover your costs, bearing in mind energy bills and whether you include them or not, and whether you factor that into the cost of the rent. You can also look at your LTV levels, his loan to value levels. So obviously standard buy-to-let mortgage is 25% down on the deposit, 75% LTV. But do you really want to have your portfolio right at the top, 75%, etc., and be pulling more money out right now? Perhaps it would make sense to let those house prices go up. Your LTV levels will then go down, and you might be able to get better mortgage rates with 60% LTV compared to 75%. And it also, obviously, if you're not taking money out, you can sort of build up a cash buffer as well if times are a bit harder than we're expecting and it goes on longer than the 12 to 18 months. And it's really important now, I'm not saying don't buy property, but do the extra due diligence. So you need to get your trackers in place, you need to check whether it actually works. And right now, yeah, there might be some areas where single lets are still working, but more often than not, you're going to be looking at HMOs to actually increase your cash flow. But of course, look at your return on investment, which you should be looking for about 15-20%, and allowing for all those energy costs, which I'll cover on another video. So my take in a nutshell, brokers are, priceless. A good broker who can sort the whole of the market for you to get the best deals. Don't go straight into long fixes out of a panic. Give yourself some room. Think about going with the standard variable if you're coming off for a little time yet, and see how that works for you. And you can always get another fix later when things settle down a bit. The market seems to have recently responded positively to some of the changes with Jeremy Hunt coming in and the like, so hopefully that will steady the ship for now. That would be my advice, but of course none of this is financial advice. It's just my opinion as a landlord and what I'll be doing. I'll be looking at lowering my loan to values, I'll be looking at building up more of a cash buffer, and I'll talk next time about energy costs and what you can do in EPCs. My name is Chris Morgan. Thank you for viewing my video, and I'll be putting out more content there. So stay tuned, subscribe, and like this video if you do. Thanks very much. Till the next one. Bye.